Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL Draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another edition of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers, joined in by my co-hosts, Peter Baracchini, Devin Little. I'm, of course, your host, Matthew Zator, and we're back for another week of talking prospects, and we're going to keep going around the leagues here. But first, Peter, how's it going on another second week of NHL hockey now? And prospects are, they're pretty much well into their seasons now. So how's it going?
Yeah, the prospect watch is definitely underway right now. I've been keeping a close eye, obviously, with all the Ontario Hockey League action, but of course, every other league as we are getting into some of the other ones this time around. We focused on CHL last week. We're heading down south. So hopefully this time around, we're still going to find some really great names and highlight some of the top names possibly in this draft. Who knows? But, a lot of great names out there.
Yeah, for sure. And Devin, how's it going? Your Red Wings are doing pretty well, and Grand Rapids Griffins are doing pretty well too. So how's it going on your end of the world there?
I can't complain. Got to see two hockey games in person over the last week, and Grand Rapids won one of them and lost the other one. So can't say I'm too high or too low right now. So yeah, excited hockey's back, and excited I've already gotten some games under my belt.
For sure. So, like I said, we went through the CHL last week. We're on to some, American stuff, and we're going to go through the AHL, the NCAA, and the USHL at this time around. And the AHL just got going this past week. They've gotten a few games. There's some teams that only played a couple, but there's some standouts already in those leagues. So, but before we get going, of course, this show is being brought to you by the Morning Skate. The best newsletter on the Hockey Writers, jam-packed full of a whole bunch of stories, news, a whole bunch of stuff that you can get every morning now. It's now Monday to Friday, back to its regular schedule, and they've got great tidbits, scores, recaps, a whole bunch of stuff every morning. Take a look at that. Put your email in the link down below, morningskate.io, and get that every morning. All right, let's get into this episode and start talking about the American Hockey League. And this, people don't know, this is the minor league that's just below the NHL, and have a lot of the prospects that end up, playing up and down between the NHL and the AHL all season long. So you get to see some of these guys in the NHL too. So let's get started with that. Devin, we'll start with you. Who have you seen in the AHL, even though small sample size, but who's standing out to you so far?
Yeah, and I love that setup because the AHL it's maybe a little bit of a bad rep because it's a minor league. It's not the NHL. When players are sent there, it's like, oh, they're not, whatever. No, it's a very competitive league, and it's some of the very best prospects in the world play there. So I'm a local to Grand Rapids, so I've kind of have a built-in appreciation for the AHL, but no, it's a fantastic league. And if you haven't gone to a game yet, I highly recommend you do so. My player that I'm going to highlight, like I said off the top, I went to 2 Griffins games this past week, so I feel like I've got to talk about what I saw, right? I'm going to talk about Hanas as my player for the AHL. This is a Red Wings prospect. Go figure. I'm not going to do this for everyone, but we'll start with the Red Wings prospect. This is a guy who was drafted. I've talked about him before. He was drafted in the second round, going back in the 2020 draft. Had a down year after his D+1 year, and then came to a roaring. Had a roaring season this past year with Portland. But his main thing last year in the WHL was he was a playmaker. He had 60 assists in 63 games. That's a lot of assists, let me tell you. But then to start off the season here in the AHL with the Griffins, he's got a little bit of a scoring touch. He's got 3 goals and 4 points in 5 games to start his AHL career. So he's got a nose for the net to start off. That's an interesting development. And that's kind of a continuation from what I saw while he was partaking in training camp and preseason with the Red Wings. He was really showcasing his shot more so than his playmaking ability. And I think that for him as a prospect, if he can really, develop into a two-way threat in terms of making plays and finishing them, he's going to become a real tantalizing prospect for the Red Wings, because it's one thing to be a playmaker, but if you can also finish plays, oh boy, defenders don't know what to do with you. Excited to see what he does. He's obviously, like I said, early into his journey. He's still got some things to iron out. He's not a complete player by any means, but for him to already be getting some solid offensive returns in the early going here, I think his confidence has to be high. And when confidence is high, that kind of lays the groundwork to have more success and start developing at a faster rate. So I've liked what I've seen out of Hanas to start in the AHL, and I'm looking forward to seeing him continue climbing up the depth chart, because, like I said, great start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I like Cross Hanas when he was in Portland too, and great. I think I highlighted him on Grindline for one of the episodes, and yeah, it's great to see him starting well this season. We'll see what he can do throughout the season and see if he can sustain it, because people hit walls, and especially in a season that in a league that's a much higher level, and you're playing against players that have been in that league for years and have even played in the NHL for years. So like you said, Devin, it's a very competitive league. This is not your junior league. This is pretty hard to play in. So if you're performing in it, you probably have a really good chance of performing in the NHL. So that's great start for Hanas for sure. All right, Peter, who do you have to highlight in the AHL at your end?
I'm going to the Buffalo Sabres system. We know how deep their prospect pool is, and I'm going to say Isak Rosen. Drafted in the first round, 14th overall in 2021, one of the many first round picks for the Sabres. 4 points in 5 games. Obviously -3, not doing so well in the plus minus department, but that stat is up for debate as usual. But overall, the production is there. Just under a point per game, and according to the league prospects, he's on pace for 57 points in 72 games. So obviously, a lot needs to happen, but consistency needs to be there. We need to see how well he progresses, but that's still pretty decent production for a first year AHL player. And he's a top 5 prospect in the Sabres pool, or at least maybe just outside top 5, because of his ability to be an offensive dynamo. He's got great hands. He's got great playmaking skills. He's quick in transition, highly skilled, but don't underestimate his shot, because when he's wide open, man, can he rip it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's off to a hot start right now in the AHL, on possibly another strong Rochester Americans team, things are only going to look up for him, because he's already off to a great start. So if he's able to maintain that consistency, obviously there's going to be some ups and downs. He needs to round out his game a little bit more, but the fact that he has that work ethic and compete is a great sign. And the fact that he's showing it right now, there's a reason why I'm highlighting him right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, during that draft year, a lot of us really liked Rosen. So, the Sabres, again, their system's so strong. They got so many good guys in that system. So, Rosen is going to really help be in the NHL probably pretty soon. And it's great that he's starting out just like Jack Quinn kind of had a really good season in the AHL last year. So if he can have a similar type breakout season, he may be the NHL sooner rather than later. So we'll have to keep an eye out for him. All right. Well, I've got, of course, I'm going to be a homer just like Devin and go with a Canucks prospect. And this is a guy that's been, kind of started out slow after playing for the Calgary Hitmen. This is Carson Focht. And he, coming off of his last season at WHL, had 32 goals and 56 points and 61 games, and an alternate captain as well. Went to the Utica Comets, who was the Canucks AHL affiliate at the time. Had only 4 goals and 12 points. In 28 games, that's decent. But and then he, went to the Abbotsford Canucks and kind of had a down year. 3 goals, 10 points in 41 games this time. Wasn't overly noticeable from what I could tell. The thing is I was following the AHL season. I didn't really highlight him at all. So, I mean, that shows he wasn't really that noticeable throughout the season. So this year, though, starting out really well. He's got 2 goals in 2 games. Again, small sample, but he's gotten both of his games he's played, he's got a goal. And both of the goals were really nice goals. He used a shot on one of them. And he's one of those guys that can be a very tenacious type 3rd, 4th line guy in the NHL. A lot of people didn't really like the draft pick at the time, including me. If you go back to that recap, I was really, really not very, very happy when they drafted him because, in the time and that year, he didn't really have that good of a year. But I mean, we'll see how he goes now. But in the AHL, it's great to see him have a good start. And, in a system that the Canucks system isn't that strong. And they need all their late rounders to hit for them to do anything. So it's great to see Focht starting off the season well. I highlighted him in an article saying that he has to have a strong season this year. Well, so far, he may have read it. Well, I'm going to have a strong season. So it's great to see him doing that right now. All right, well, let's move to the NCAA now, and this is the college ranks where, guys don't just get the hockey, but they also get the education as well. So a lot of guys do this because they can, hockey's not guaranteed. I mean, they're not going to play they may not play in the NHL. They may not have a long hockey career. So you have to have something that you can fall back on. And it's great that these guys are getting that. So let's go and talk about some NCAA players. Peter, we'll start with you. Who do you want to highlight from the NCAA?
Well, you guys were homers in the AHL, so I'm going to kick things off and be a homer for the NCAA and pick a Maple Leafs prospect. And as much as I want to pick Matthew Nyes, it is not Matthew Nyes, but it is Ryan Tverberg from the University of Connecticut. Obviously, standout sophomore season last year with 32 points in 36 games. Really great production, and he's off to a hot start this season. 8 points in 8 games, 5 goals. This is a very underrated prospect in the Maple Leaf system right now, and I don't think he's getting more attention than he should have. I mean, he was a final cut on Team Canada's roster before the canceled World Junior team. This is a guy who plays with a lot of pace, a lot of energy and work ethic, and he's the guy that could be a thorn in the opposition side because he's just absolutely relentless when tracking down the puck. But when he has the puck on his stick, man, can he make things happen with his playmaking, his shot, his ability to find the open space in his teammates. He's doing everything right now. And for the Maple Leafs to get him 7th round in 2020, there we go. That's more correct because 213th overall is probably going to be one of those diamond in the rough prospects or one of those prospects that could be a very valuable asset in sort of like a bottom 6 role where, or maybe could amount to more depending on how well he progresses with his development. But so far he's off to a really great start, and every single season he's been getting better and better, and the Maple Leafs have to be proud of that. Yeah,
I mean that there's another guy that again, the Maple Leafs, another team that they need all their prospects to hit. Because being a really good team, you're not going to ever get really high draft picks. So you're going to need those late rounders, or not late rounders, but that was a late rounder. So to hit. So we'll have to see. And 7th round picks, it seems like there's quite a few that lately that have been doing pretty well. We'll have to see if they're actually going to do something in the NHL, but it's great to see them doing it at this point in their development for sure. All right, Devin, let's go to you. What do you have for the NCAA?
Well, it's not quite me being a homer, but that whole Michigan team is in my my backyard, so to speak, and it's hard not to notice what they're doing, right? Especially with Adam Fantilli. Yeah. But I'm going to talk about his line mate, Dylan Duke. And the reason why I'm going to talk about Dylan Duke is because I think he's one of the reasons why Fantilli's been able to have so much success as a freshman with the University of Michigan. This is a prospect who only had 19 points in 41 games with the Wolverines this past season, talking about Duke, not Fantilli. And that's partially because of just how much depth was on last year's Michigan team. He just wasn't asked to play as big a role. He definitely wasn't on the top line last year. And then this year, he's next to arguably one of the best prospects in the world right now. And he's he's doing the dang thing. He's got 10 points in 6 games. That includes 4 goals. And he plays he plays kind of a complementary role to Fantilli, but he also gives him a skilled player to play with. And we talk about on this show a lot about how it is a skill to play with skill, and how skill brings out skill in other players. And I think that both Duke and Fantilli are kind of bringing out the best in each other right now for the Wolverines. And this is talking about Duke again. This is a player who was drafted in the 4th round of the 2021 draft by the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if there's any team in the NHL who desperately needs young players to come and help their team out, LOL, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm joking, of course. They're fine. They don't need prospects. But if Dylan Duke becomes something, look out, because reinforcements are on the right, white boys. But yeah, no, this is a guy who plays bigger than his frame. He's only 5'10" and 180 pounds, but he'll go to the ugly areas. He'll put himself in front of the goalie. He'll fight for pucks along the boards. He's gonna do the greasy plays that gets the puck to high end skill players like Fantilli and allows them to do what they're doing. So I think that Duke's really kind of putting his name on the map this year. After having a solid but unspectacular year last year with the Wolverines, this year he's among the NCAA leaders in points. A lot of it has to do with his line mate, but a lot of it has to do with his own merits. So good on Duke for really showing what he's made of in the early going here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Tampa Bay Lightning, they have, like we've said many times, they really have luck with late round picks. So
they sure do.
So later round picks. Dylan Duke was what, a 4th? What did you say?
Yep.
4th round pick. So I mean that, that's not a late, but it's later. And the thing is the Lightning have been able to hit on a few of those guys lately. So he could be another one. And he wasn't supposed to be in the 4th. I think me, Peter, and I had him ranked in, I believe,
second or third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to him go down to the 4th was kind of a bit of a surprise. I know when the draft was going on, we're like, why hasn't he been drafted yet? So, and of course the Lightning are the ones that get him. All right. Well, I'm going to go with a guy that's going to be drafted this year pretty high probably, and Matthew Wood. And of course, if you've watched this show, I like the Matthews, and here's another one, and he's in the college ranks, and coming from the BCHL, who he ripped up the BCHL last season to the tune of 45 goals and 85 points, and mostly because of his shot. I mean, that shot alone is NHL caliber probably right now. So, I mean, it's no surprise he's got 3 goals in 8 games, 3 goals and 7 points in 8 games already for the University of Connecticut. And this is as an 17. He's not even 18 yet. And this is as a 17-year-old in the NCAA playing against a lot of guys that are bigger and stronger than him, or should be bigger and stronger than him. But he's not a small guy. He's 6'3", 190. And, ranked around, the ranks that are out right now, ranking highest 13th by Dauber Prospects, 17th by Craig Button. So, I mean, not really high, but I think on my rankings, I think he's in the top 10 personally. But there's so much talent in this draft. It's really kind of hard to rank guys, especially because there's so much. But Wood is definitely going to be drafted in the 1st round, probably pretty high. And he's already showing it in NCAA, which, like I said, is a lot tougher of a league to perform in, and he's already doing it. So look out for Matthew Wood all season long. Prospect profiles will come out, and you'll get to know a bit more about him. Playing in the backyard where I'm here in BCHL last season, and an interview he was talking about he started working on his shot when Elias Pettersson was a rookie. So I mean, looking at a guy like that, it's a pretty good guy to emulate. Pettersson's got a heck of a shot too. He's got to put it in the net lately, but that's he's hitting the posts a lot. He's got a few goals, but yeah, Wood also roomed with Connor Bedard in 9th grade. So he's got some good guys to kind of look at and emulate. So look out for Matthew Wood. He's going to be a heck of a prospect for whoever gets him. I'm hoping the Canucks, but we'll see. All right. Well, let's move to the USHL. And this is the league that kind of a lot of guys come from to go to the NCAA. So let's start with you, Devin, on this one. USHL. Who do you have to highlight here?
This is maybe the low-hanging fruit, but I feel like I've got to mention him because he is leading the USHL in points right now as a 2023 draft eligible player, and that would be Jayden Perron of the Chicago Steel. Solid 15 points in 10 games. What's funny?
No, I said, of course, the
You
Chicago
took my
Steel.
pick.
Oh, okay.
That's all
Gotcha.
good.
Yeah. I mean, he's right, low-hanging fruit.
That's right.
But no, this is a player who talking about how Dylan Duke plays kind of higher or bigger than he actually is. I think Jayden Perron is playing bigger than he is, and that's not just because he's like, making a big impact. He's just kind of in on everything for the Chicago Steel. And the Chicago Steel is kind of, the US national team development programs part of this. But I feel like the Chicago Steel kind of gets underrated as a talent developer because that's where Owen Power was.
Yeah.
There's Nick Moldenhauer's on this team. Like the Chicago Steel pumps out some really good players, and looks like Perron's going to be the latest, right?
Mm.
He's already committed to the University of North Dakota. I've said this before on the show, but that program only recruits elite players. So the fact that he's committed to North Dakota definitely says something. And he looks like he's a player that already has a real knack for just making things happen on the ice. Like I said, he's a 2023 draft eligible player, and when we talk about how this year's draft class is loaded beyond Connor Bedard, it's because players like Perron are part of it, and you're gonna get him outside of like the top 10 maybe. That's crazy, right? I think that this is a player, he's got 32 shots in 10 games, so that's over 3 shots a game. Like I said, he just kind of makes things happen. I think he's very much he's earned his spot atop the leaderboard in terms of points right now. Obviously, it's early on, like we've been saying throughout this episode, but early returns are quite promising from this player, and I would not be surprised to see him climb up the draft rankings as we progress through this year's draft season.
Yeah, well, I was laughing because the Chicago Steel just seems to be coming up all the time in any of these drafts. And they seem to always, they're like the University of Michigan of the USHL because they just keep getting talent every year. And it's just, it's insane. Matthew Coronado was part of that as well. And you just list them off of all these guys that have been part of that system, and they're all high-end prospects. So keep an eye on, because they're going to be, again, the Chicago Steel is just a talent factory. So keep an eye on him for sure. All right, Peter, who do you have from the USHL now that Devin is taking your pick?
Well, it's a good thing that I've been tracking more USHL players this time around. So I have another one in mind aside from Jayden Perron, and I'm going with Andrew Strathmann from the Youngstown Phantoms, another 2023 draft eligible prospect, defenseman. Decent production last season, 23 points with Tri-City, but now on Youngstown right now, 5 points in 5 games, being a point per game player already. I absolutely love the way that he's able to just be very well composed on the back end. He's got great smarts, great positioning, awareness, a great transitional speed to carry the play up. And he's got that mold of like a very steady offensive defenseman, but has a very responsible defensive game as well. So he's got that two-way aspect going for him already. And obviously, if he's able to continue to work on his strengths and continue to get better, I see him as possibly a second round pick or maybe a third. I can't see him going any further than what, obviously not a lot of rankings have him ranked right now. It's still early on in the season, but he's one name to keep an eye on because I think he's a name that could shoot up many boards, and he's already on my radar right now. So the way that he's playing right now, committed to the University of North Dakota, I believe, when his time in the USHL is done. So he's going to be able to, whatever skills and whatever he's learned in the USHL is obviously going to transfer over to the NCAA because he's just so confident great composure and a great work ethic. So I'm really high on Andrew Strathmann as a defender in this year's draft.
There we go. We're just getting started with the 2023 draft. So let's go. I mean, let's keep going. I'm not doing that, but I'm going to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs prospect. And this is from aforementioned Chicago Steel. And Devin, you mentioned him briefly there too, Nicholas Moldenhauer. And again, I think he was drafted a lot lower than I thought he would. I thought he was going to go into the second round, but third round pick, 95th overall by the Maple Leafs in this past draft. And it was off to a great start with the Steel. He's got 9 goals already, halfway there from his 18 from last season. And, it was off to a great start, 13 points in 10 games. And a +2, if you want to look at that, that's if he's good defensively. I mean, +2 on a Steel team that's usually scoring a lot of goals. But he's off to a great start, and great puck handler, one of the better guys. He can do a lot of the stuff with the puck. I mean, he can play both center and right wing, so he's versatile. 5'10", 170, not the biggest guy, but he's very skilled. So I mean, keep an eye on him. I mean, Peter, I know you probably know a lot about Moldenhauer now that he's been drafted by the Maple Leafs. So it's great to see him going because, like I said, he's got that great skill with the puck. He's got a pretty good shot. So, I mean, he looks to be a player that could eventually make it in the NHL. And like I said, with the Maple Leafs, they can take anyone they can right now. And I think this past draft, they got a few guys that could potentially be some interesting prospects to watch in the next few seasons. So keep an eye on Moldenhauer. He's up to that, almost a point, over a point a game so far this season. So I just like seeing these on pace numbers, 56 goals and 81 points. So we'll see if he can do that. 56 goals would be pretty good. He would go over his 45 goals and 122 points he did in AAA, but we'll have to see.
Quick correction on my part. Strathmann is 6 points in 5 games, not 5 and 5. Little slight slip of the tongue right there.
Well, even better then.
Even better. Yeah, that's why I highlighted
him.
He's over a point a game then.
There we go.
Yeah. And Moldenhauer just had a streak of 6 goals in just 4 games. So that's pretty good.
Very.
All right. Well, let's that wraps up our first league check-in of the season, and lots of great players we didn't mention, and we'll be mentioning throughout the season. We'll do this occasionally to kind of check in, maybe every month we'll do this and look through the leagues and see who else is still kind of dominating or who has come out of nowhere and started doing some stuff. So, and of course we'll keep more start focusing more on our draft eligible guys for 2023 as we go as well. All right. Well, before we get to our quick fire round, which is hosted by Peter this time, we're getting around the horn. We're coming back to me next week, but this is Peter's time. So, but before we get to that, this show is being brought to you by Sports Fans Side Hustle, a new digital course that teaches passionate sports fans how to make a lucrative side income off their love of the game. Get off the sidelines into the game with a course that will teach you over 14 different and easy to start methods any sports fan can use, and all you need is the internet, a computer, passion for sports, and a few hours a week. Go to sportssidehustle.com, get an absolutely free startup guide to explain 4 keys to unlocking this income opportunity. Again, that's sportssidehustle.com, and get started today. That'll be you can click that right in the description below there. All right, well, let's get back to the show and hand the hosting duties over to Peter right now and take it away with our quick fire for this week.
All right. I'm looking forward to this because this is probably, it may not be as challenging as the last one that I did, but I'm really excited to see what your take is going to be on all these on these 5 questions. So, Devin, I'm going to start off with you on this one, but my question is, it's obviously going to be about Marco Kasper. Obviously, the Red Wings had a really went kind of not necessarily off the board because there was possibility that he could go into the top 10, and he did. So he's still looking pretty good right now in the SHL. Obviously, production in the SHL, given his two-way ability and work ethic, it's not going to be as high, but he's still playing really well. He's showing that pro game and he's able to keep up. In your estimation, what is his ETA to the NHL?
So do you mean like his first game, or do you mean he's like a full-time NHLer?
You know what? I'll be nice and let's say first game.
I think that he will debut next season. I couldn't tell you when exactly, but I would not be surprised if he plays a game next season.
Interesting. Matt, what do you think?
I personally, I thought he could play this year. Play some games this year in the NHL, but obviously they moved him back to the SHL because, development and because the season had started already and all that. But I think he's ready to play in the NHL. So I'm going to say the same as Devin. I think he sees some games next year.
I just real quick, I think it's going to be very similar to how they're handling Simon Edmondson this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
Very. And yeah, no, I do think that I maybe not next year, maybe the year after, maybe let him get some seasoning in with the AHL. But then again, I said the same thing possibly with Moritz Seider. I said the same thing with Simon Edmondson. So who knows what can happen? And obviously, if he is ready, so be it. I mean, he's just another key prospect or another key player in the Red Wings' future. Moving on to the next question, Matt, you're going to be leading us off with this one. Shane Wright, only 1 assist in 5 games and averaging just under 7 minutes per game. Obviously, the Kraken may have a plan with him, but, he's already at 5 games, still within that 9-game tryout. At what point should they or are they going to send him back to the OHL?
I mean, this has been something that I've been thinking about. I mean, the thing is, like, Devin went on that soapbox in the last episode about him, and I agree with everything he said last week. And the thing is, if he's not playing a lot, and he's not even playing on the power play, which is insane, then he's got to go back to the OHL. I mean, his development playing that little, I don't think is good. I mean, other people say, being around NHLers, that's great. I mean, that's awesome, but he got to play. I mean, you can't be sitting on the bench or, most of the game sitting on the bench. You got to be in the NHL and playing there. So I'm going to say they probably will send him back eventually. I think it's going to be around the 9-game mark before that 10th game is played. He'll be sent back to Kingston for sure.
Yeah, I do think that at some point that is going to happen, because if he's not getting the minutes right now, and obviously you want to see what he could do in the NHL, but you know what? Even after the second or third game, when the ice time was still low, I think that's a point where you got to say, you know what? You can't keep him up. You're going to string him along a little bit, maybe get his hopes up, and then maybe he's just going to play meaningless minutes, and you don't want that for a top prospect.
Yeah.
From one prospect that, had a great season in the OHL last year to another one that's already played 2 games and is looking pretty good with 6 points with the Kitchener Rangers right now. I'm talking about Filip Mesar. Impressive, few games in the OHL right now with the Rangers, as mentioned. Devin, what is a realistic point total for Mesar this season? And keep in mind, he did play on a line with Francesco Pinelli and Carson Rakoff. So 2 highly gifted offensive players right there.
Man. Well, I'll tell you right now, he's on pace for almost 190 points this season. So it might be crazy. I don't think he's gonna get there though. I think 100's doable. I think that's doable for him. Wow. You know what? Well, I said I think 100 is doable. I will officially guess somewhere in the 90s. And then if he hits 100, I'll be like, I told you so.
There you go. Well, you heard it here first, and you heard it from Devin. Matt, what do you think about Mesar and his point production this season?
I'm going to say he'll hit 100. I'm going to go officially and say he's going to hit 100. So I can go above Devin and say, I actually said that. So yeah, I'm gonna go 100. I think he'll hit.
Does this mean Peter's got to say 110 now? Just are we playing Prices Right where we're
just
$1
just to be that guy and just one up you and just say 101. But I do think 90 between 90 and 100 is very manageable for him, given his upside and his skill set. I mean, obviously didn't quite have that production, and then again, he was playing in the top Slovak league last year. So as teenager. So to have 16 points among men is really great. The fact that he's here developing his game in a really strong Kitchener Rangers system, although they weren't doing that great, but now with him in the fold, obviously the points and the goals are going to come. So hopefully that's going to be a benefit for them in the standings. And I do think that he's going to have a very strong standout season. So, I keep an eye on Mesar because he's going to be very fun to watch. And I'm just going to stop there because, yeah. Moving on to, we're going to be talking about Calder prospects. We're going to get to an underrated name, but I'm throwing out another one right now. And obviously the goaltending class is not as strong, and we didn't know who is going to be a Calder-worthy goaltender in the NHL this season. But to all of our surprise right now, Logan Thompson, 2-2 with the Vegas Golden Knights right now, but 926 save percentage and 229 goals against average with one shutout. Is he a serious Calder contender or a name to keep an eye on, Devin?
Yeah, I certainly think so, especially with him playing for the team he plays for. I think that if Logan Thompson can carry the Golden Knights back into the playoffs, I think that's a heck of a resume, depending on who else is in that conversation. But to answer your question, yeah, I certainly think so.
Matt, I completely forgot I should have gone to you first on that question, but what do you think about Logan Thompson and his run for a Calder Trophy bid?
It's going to be tough. I mean, goaltenders, you have to be really exceptional to win the Calder.
Yeah.
And because everyone just thinks of forwards at first. And even like I said, I thought Zator had a hard road. But again, is exceptional. And that's for a defenseman to win, you have to be exceptional. Makar, obviously, I mean, exceptional. So, I mean, the thing is, if he has a chance, he's going to have to be ridiculously good. And so far, so good. Yeah. He's probably started out really well. And like Devin said, I think, he's on the team that could potentially help him to get there. And I joked on the podcast the other day saying that, Vegas is probably going to trade Leonard now because, after this season, because they got another goaltender. But because I think Thompson has the ability to do that, just like what Ottinger did in Dallas, kind of pushed all the veterans out, and now he's the main man. So I could definitely see Thompson doing that. As for Calder, has a chance. I mean, but he's gonna have to be exceptional to win it for sure.
Yeah, no, it's the road that he's come on to try and get to the NHL or get to the NHL right now is absolutely impressive. And there was an article, and again, I'm very bad at doing this. I need to find out who wrote the article about his road to the NHL. I want to say, I'm not going to say the name just yet, but if I find it, I will definitely mention it later on. But his road to the NHL is it's something, to be impressed on, because the long and difficult road, and now he's making the impact right now with the Golden Knights. So I thought this season the goaltending was going to be a question mark, and he's starting to prove many wrong about that. So he's definitely opening up some eyes right now. Moving on to the final question. Obviously, games have been played, and we all know Connor Bedard watch is in full effect right now. Looking at the standings, the bottom 5 teams are, and this is in descending order, San Jose Sharks, Vancouver Canucks, Arizona Coyotes, Anaheim Ducks, and surprisingly enough, the Minnesota Wild are the bottom 5 teams in the league. So I was going from 32 to 28. Obviously, I can't see Minnesota being a strong contender for Connor Bedard just yet. I think they're going to turn it around, but who has now the best chance of possibly this early chance or early lottery or early prediction of landing Connor Bedard? Matt.
Well, oh my God. At this point, it's still the Coyotes, and the Blackhawks aren't in the bottom 5 right now.
Surprisingly,
unfortunately, they're not. They're
not. They're actually a big game above 500. So.
Yeah.
I still say it's the Coyotes because I think the Canucks are going to eventually get out of it. Even though a lot of people don't think that right now. I mean, Canucks fans, they think that the Canucks are irreparable. What do they call? They can't be fixed at this point. So right now, I still think it's the Coyotes because I think just the Canucks have too much talent on their team to actually go like this all season. Well, at least I hope they don't.
Devin, what do you think?
I think that my head tells me that Arizona is still the pick here. Their best player is Clayton Keller, and there's really not that much after him. They're gonna trade Chikrin at some point, I assume. Like they're gonna get worse.
Okay.
But I will say, I think that San Jose is already they've already played 7 games and they've only got 1 win.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they are gonna go on a big run that puts them out of this range. And honestly, I think that Bedard would look pretty good in teal. So I will say Arizona because they're the Coyotes and they still have a lot of work to do. But I think that maybe we haven't included the Sharks in this conversation enough up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I do think I'm going to throw the bid in for the San Jose Sharks right there. -11 goal differential. Obviously not ideal, but then again, we knew it was going to be a rough season for them. And I do agree that Bedard would look nice in teal. So obviously not the start that they wanted, going 1-6, but you know what? They are definitely a team that's not necessarily in tank mode, but they're going to struggle a lot this season. So I would probably say the San Jose Sharks as well.
Yeah. Could look good in the little Canucks jersey too.
Hometown kid.
His hometown. He said he wants
the
Canucks to pick him. But.
There we go. So hey, sometimes dreams do come true. So there's also that going for him as well. So
yeah, Canucks fans have to suffer through a really bad season for that.
Yeah. That is it for the quick fire round. Hopefully those questions were a little bit easier. I don't know. I saw a lot of thinking, but also going back to that Logan Thompson article that I saw was by Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff about his path to the NHL. So I would give that a read if I were you. And as a result of that, because the quick fire is done, we are now heading into our prospects of the week. Devin, who have you got for your prospect of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my time watching those Griffins games, and I'm going to talk about one of the other teams that I watched and their goaltender. I got to watch Sebastian Cossa make his first AHL start, and it was against Yaroslav Askarov and the Milwaukee Admirals. So a goaltending battle between 2 of the best goaltending prospects in the game right now, and Cossa won it. But we're not here to talk about Cossa. I'm here to talk about Askarov this time. From what I saw out of Askarov in that game, he's a confident guy. Just the way he holds himself, just the way he kind of, handles his game, just the way he, moves around on the ice and such. You can tell he's got confidence in himself. And I think that goaltending a lot of the times comes down to confidence. So I think that bodes well for him going into the future. But his numbers certainly don't inspire confidence. We'll say that. It's off to a bit of a rough start. His 2 starts, he's got a sub 900 save percentage. I think a lot of that might have to do with just unfamiliarity with the team, the systems. This is going to be his first full season in North America, so there's a lot of different ingredients going on there as to why he might, he's not off to a roaring start. But Jesper Wallsted's not off to a roaring start either. So he's a young goalie, right? You can't expect these guys to come in and just be dominant right out of the gates. And that's what we're seeing with Askarov. But like I said, I did like what I saw out of him. It was a close game. The Griffins won that game 3-2. So Askarov definitely did his part to hold his team in it. Team just couldn't get one more goal on Kosa. But yeah, I think that if going back to when Askarov was drafted, he was the top goaltender of that class. He was considered one of the top goaltending prospects in the world too, and he still is. But it looks like since he's been drafted, the conversation has maybe shifted towards Wallstead. It's shifted towards maybe other names. Askarov has kind of fallen by the wayside. But if what I saw is any indication, his name should very much still be in this conversation as to who's, the top 5 or whatever goaltending prospects in the league. He's just got to get comfortable in North America, and that might take some time. But luckily for the Predators, they've got UC Saros in the NHL team already, so they've got all the time in the world to give Askarov to reach his potential.
No, that absolutely.
Yeah, Askarov is. I had him second on the goaltending rankings for prospects, so he's still pretty high up for me.
Yeah.
He's definitely got to be up there. No doubt about that. The big concern was his inconsistency in, over in Russia. But then again, we're starting to see that a little bit now, but he's going to find a way. There's no doubt he's got a lot of potential right now.
Yeah.
Matt, who is your prospect of the week?
All right, I'm going to go with a guy that I've talked about on this show before, and this is Christian Kyrou. And, he's off to a great start in the OHL this year, and just had the game-tying goal and the game winner this past week, and Dallas Stars draft pick. And this is a guy that I thought should have been drafted a little. I think he was drafted pretty high, but, he's a very, very skilled player. And playing for the Erie Otters, who's, don't have their standing of how they're doing right now. Just give me a sec. I just want to make sure I'm saying. I was going to say they're off to a good start, but they're off an okay start. They're 4-4 right now, and they're a team that's not really that high up. But Kyrou is going to be exciting to watch. It doesn't matter how the team's doing, because he's one of those modern day defensemen. He's a guy that is undersized, but he's got the skating like a Quinn Hughes type guy, and very mobile, very great hockey sense, all the attributes that you need in the NHL right now, and great first pass, all that stuff. So keep an eye on Kyrou all season, and he's already off to that great start. Had a great week for the Otters this week, so keep an eye on Kyrou, because like I said, he's an NHL caliber. At least his skill set is NHL caliber. You don't know if he's going to be able to put it all together for the NHL yet, but keep watching him in the OHL, because he's exciting to watch.
No, absolutely. And we know how well his brother Jordan's doing in the NHL. So there's absolutely no doubt that with his speed and his skating and his offensive awareness, that he's able to produce from the back end as well. My prospect of the week is someone that we already talked about in the quickfire round, and it's hard not to recognize this, but Filip Mesar is my prospect of the week after his first 2 games and really standout debut alone, where he had 4 points against the Sudbury Wolves in a 7-2 win. I don't know about you, but that to me is really great production and a reason to be, worthy of a prospect of the week. But at the same time, he followed that up with another 2 goals in an overtime win against the Guelph Storm. So it's the Montreal first rounder is off to a very hot start in his OHL debut. Obviously, there were questions about what to do with him. Would it be AHL? Obviously, OHL is the better path for him. Mm-hmm. And like I didn't want to get too much into him, but he was someone that I wanted the Maple Leafs to draft had they kept their pick, if they didn't trade for Peter Mrazek. Mm-hmm. But the Montreal Canadiens did well in selecting him because he's got great energy, work ethic, the skill, the hands, the positional awareness. He just thinks the game at a very quick pace. And it reminds me of that of Owen Beck and what we're seeing right now, just always on the go. And, not only do they have Owen Beck, but they got Mesar. So they got two of the same player in their system right now. And Owen Beck is doing a fantastic job already right now in his draft year plus one season. But Mesar alone with his production, and we talked about like what is a realistic expectation. Again, 90, 100 points is definitely not out of the realm of possibility if he's able to be this consistent in his production. Obviously, we're not going to see a lot of 4-goal or 4-point games, 2-goal games and all that. But if he's able to manage to find a score sheet very consistently, it's going to be a great season for him. So he is my prospect of the week.
Yeah, we loved him, and in any of our rankings, we had him I believe in the first round.
Yeah.
Most of us did. If not, it was like early on in the
Close
second.
to, yeah.
Right. So I mean, for him to have we already talked about in the quick fire how good start he's had in the OHL now. Yeah, it's really no surprise his skill level, right? To be able to do that. So, all right. Well, before we wrap up the show, we're going to have another edition of our dark horse Calder Trophy candidate. And we talked about Logan Thompson earlier, but we're going to talk about a guy that wasn't really expected to be in this conversation. I think a lot of people maybe forgot about him. Shane Pinto, Ottawa Senators prospect, and had injury problems last season. And I think maybe that's why people forgot. He's still a rookie. He's still eligible for the Calder Trophy. Second in points right now. He's got 4 goals and 5 points. And the Senators, he's showing to be one of of all the guys they have on that team right now of talent, he's sure showing to be a really productive piece of that roster now, and could actually be that dark horse candidate to be part of that Calder Trophy conversation where everyone was thinking it's Matty Beniers, it's Kent Johnson, and Kent Johnson's up there right now too in points. I mean, very early, Matty Beniers is there too. He's got 5 points. So, I mean, of all the names in there, and one guy that's really, we'll maybe talk about later, Kalen Addison, is another guy that's, he's leading the race right now with 6 points, all assists. But, for a guy that I don't even think everyone thought about him either. So lots of names that could be moving around this list once the Calder Trophy comes out. But Shane Pinto, definitely keep an eye on him because, like I say, I think people forgot that he's still a rookie. He's still eligible for this trophy. All right. Well, that wraps another episode of the Prospect Corner. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Devin, for coming on the show again and talking prospects. And that wraps again our league check-in for this month. And we're going to go on to do some deep dives in the teams now, and starting with Detroit Red Wings. And we're going to do a deep dive into the prospects, go through a bunch of different players through the system, and talk, who should we be looking at, and some underrated guys, all that stuff like we did last season. We may change up the format a bit, but it's gonna be fun to kind of go through the Detroit Red Wings system with Devin and Peter as well. So, and then we'll move over to the Toronto Maple Leafs and then the Vancouver Canucks, and then we'll go on to other teams as we move through the season here. But thanks for joining us for another episode of Prospect Corner. Make sure you're throwing us comments below. I mean, if you want us to talk about a certain prospect, let us know. If you want a team that you want us to talk about, let us know as well, and we'll do that as too. So give us your feedback, and we'll try to accommodate any requests. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for another edition of the Prospect Corner. We will see you next time.